Okay, students, so to create the section view, specifically the proposed ground, we're going to be using this as references. Like I said, this is not part of this project. This is just from another random project on Sunset Boulevard somewhere. I'm not even sure where that's at, but it's very similar to the project that we have here. So we can use this as a reference. So we're going to be copying information from these reference section views over to our section view. So don't forget that this is our proposed ground surface. So our proposed ground surface is this one right in here. And it's kind of weird that it draws a little line in there, but I guess it kind of shows you where that surface is drawn here on the surface view. So that's kind of cool. And then this is our existing ground surface over here. Okay. So as far as the proposed ground surface, you notice that it goes all the way from the building through the parking lot, down the rock wall, and to the sidewalk. So at this point, we can kind of look at this part right in here. So I'm going to move this around. And you know what? I'm going to get rid of the tool space. I can either turn off the tool space so I can make the space bigger. Or another thing I can do is on the tool space, I can click this little arrow here. And what it does, it collapses it so that the tool space is still there. I just have to hover over it and it brings it up if I need it. If I don't, I just move away from it and it goes away. Okay, so that's another thing that we can do just to make more use of our screen space. Okay. So I'm going to move this over a little bit. All right, so you can kind of see where this is created at. So as far as the proposed ground here, you can kind of see where it's being cut. So the first thing that we're going to see is the building, and then it's going to go through the sidewalk and then down the pavement up to what's going to be a rock wall and then the existing parkway and existing curb at this point. Okay. So that's where we're going to be drawing at. So here, what I'm going to do, and you can kind of see where that drop is at right in here. Now, we can basically trust that it's going to be this endpoint is where we're going to be placing the face of the building. That's what we can pretty much trust because of the way I drew it. Now, if you wanted to know exactly where it's at on this profile view, what you can do is you can go over here to the alignment. I can go in there to the alignment itself and create a label, a station and offset label. It's going to ask me to select the alignment. So I'm going to select the alignment, and then it's asking me a place along the alignment. So I'm going to put this intersection here of the intersection of the alignment with the building, and it will label a what's called a station. So that station is the location along the alignment of where it's at. So it gives us that location. So then what I can do is I can actually take this would be station 0 right in here, and at station 0 plus 0519 is the location of the building, which would be somewhere around here. So using the software, and now that I know where the station is at for that building, I can basically use that tool to help me locate the exact location of the building on my profile view. So I can go over here to now the profile view, and I can create a station and offset label. It's asking me to select the profile view, which I'm referencing section A. So I could just pretty much select the grid, and then it's asking me to type in a station. So the station I can type in, and I can put the plus sign and everything, but I can just put 5.19. And you know what? I probably wouldn't put in the plus sign, but nonetheless, 519, enter. And then it's asking me, you can kind of see where it's drawing it already. And then it's asking me to draw in the elevation. So the elevation at this point really doesn't matter because it's just going to draw a label on it, or I can maybe just kind of pick that point right there, either one. And if anything, it gives us a station and offset of that point, which is the endpoint of the profile. It's right in there where it's going to basically tell us where that building is at. So using that point, then I can go ahead and go over here and copy my reference information from this building. So as far as that building, what I'm going to be using, it's almost like if I'm extending the line of the building all the way to this point. That's going to be the reference edge of this building. And why is it? Oh, because it's a polyline. Almost like if I were to extend the line up to this edge, the building, why does it? Sorry about that. Right in there. So it's this point would be the reference point, which actually would be the endpoint of the sidewalk also. So either one would work. But I just need to reference that point. So then that way, when I can copy the building, I can copy the building from this reference point right in here over to this point right here at that intersection or endpoint of the build, and I missed it. So let me move it to the right location. Do this and go back a few steps. Okay, and copy it once again. Copy from this endpoint over to the intersection right there of the point, because that's exactly at that station and elevation. That's also the elevation of this point right in here, which happens to be the elevation of the building. And if anything, the 389083 also matches our grading plan. So if I go look at my grading plan over here, I can see that my grading plan has a building elevation of 389083. So you can kind of see how it all kind of links together and it all just makes sense. So I'm going to go over here to 389083, and that's going to be the finished floor of the building. And I'm done with this label. Okay, the next point would be the gutter. So we can kind of see that the gutter, I can almost guarantee you that the gutter will be at this point right in here. And we can do the same thing. We can go here, label it with a station and offset, or I can trust the fact that this endpoint right here would actually be the location of the gutter. So then same thing, I can come back over here, copy this information for the sidewalk. I can go ahead and copy the pavement. And you know what? I guess we need the notes, so might as well copy that too. And then that's going to be referencing from the gutter point right in here over to this point here on the profile. And yep, that looks pretty good because as a matter of fact, the sidewalk was modeled at a 2% slope across the sidewalk right in here. So that matches it pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and extend it up to this boundary edge, extend the sidewalk right in there. Okay, now here we actually have a swale right in here on this surface. We actually have a swale at this point. It's kind of like a little valley that we have on the pavement, and it shows up in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this line of the pavement and go ahead and place it to that point right in here. I don't know why the surface is not following the pavement. As a matter of fact, it has a flat surface here. So that's something wrong with the model. I don't completely agree with that model. It probably has to do with that contour. There's a contour in here that made it flat, and I don't agree with that. So I really wouldn't follow that, but I wouldn't expect you to know that, but just try to do the best you can. The width of the pavement is 1 foot. So I'm going to go ahead and offset 1 foot for the pavement. How do I know that? Because I'm referring to my details, like I mentioned during our class lecture today. And then the thickness of the curve is 0.5. Use my fillet command, so I'm going to just do some fillets. Here, and then here, and here. And to there. Okay, and then we do have a swale right in here. So I guess I can go ahead and copy the swale line here, because that's that swale that shows up, which is that little right in here to indicate where that swale is at. That swale also shows up on the detail grading plan. It's that swale right in here. So it's kind of like a V-shaped to indicate where water is draining towards is that swale. Very typical of what you see, and then the water is concentrated along the swale, which is why we have these little arrows. So that's where that came from. Let's go back over here, and then I need to know the elevation at that point. So I can probably go to my profiles, station elevation. So select the grid, select that point and that point there, and that's 8928. I'm going to label this one to be 8928. There we go. And then here, a little bit further out, we have a property line, a rock wall sidewalk. And how do I know that that's what that is? I can look at my detailed grading plan and I can see like note number 10. I can go over here to the keyed notes. Note number 10 is a sidewalk, and can go back over here. I have note number 17 for that shaded area. Note number 11 right up here in the front. So 17 is a new retaining rock wall. And then note number 11 is a concrete sidewalk 5 foot wide. So I need to kind of look at all these so I can know what I'm drawing and know what that is. And even 15, if that shows up, you can draw in the concrete wheel stop. So there's really no limit on how much detail, but if I can even draw in the little concrete wheel stop. How do I know what all those look like? Well, you go to your detail sheets. On the detail sheets, it'll give you the idea of the sidewalk, how thick the sidewalk is supposed to be, what it looks like to draw it in. Okay, you can look at the curb and get an idea of how big the curb is and the dimensions and the type of material on curb. So it's all in your detail sheets. And don't forget, we do have 3 different detail sheets, even the parking wheel stop. This will show you how to draw that in if you wanted to put that in. I don't think I'll spend too much time drawing on a wheel stop, but if you want to, by all means, that's what it's all about. So here we have a property line. So let me just continue with that one. So we have a property line. Looks like it's that white line right in there. So I'm going to go ahead and label the location of that one. It's going to be an alignment, station and offset of this alignment at this point right there. That has a station of 5834, 5834. So I'm going to go back to my profile view and label the profile view at station. I'm going to try the plus sign. I'm not sure it'll work. I guess it should. Yeah, it does. 5834, and then just really anywhere here, I can just pick a point. It's just going to draw it at that elevation, whatever that elevation is at. That way I'll have this marker right at station 5834. And then that way I have that marker. I can go ahead and go over here and copy the right of way and labels. And I guess I can go from this endpoint here over to that intersection. I think it's an intersection of 2 lines for that intersection right there. And place that one, so that will be right at 5834. So I'll know where that right of way line is at. I can go ahead and take off this label here, and this is the right of way for McKinley Boulevard. McKinley Boulevard, if I'm not mistaken, is a 60 plus 60, so that's a 120-foot right of way. 120-foot right of way. Okay. So that shows up there. And then at that point, we need to draw in that rock wall, which starts at this point. So then from there, I can go back over here. The rock wall looks similar to this. Copy this rock wall. And that'll be going from this endpoint here. But we have a new sidewalk too at this point. We have a new sidewalk. So I probably need to look for that gutter and top. Oh, but that's a new curb too. Interesting. That's very, very interesting. So I should really, in this case, there's new curb, not existing. There's new curb somewhere at this point, somewhere here. But what elevation would that be at? That's where it gets kind of interesting. So we'd have to draw that in, and then the sidewalk and everything. I'll let you figure that out. But like I said, you just copy the rock wall into place and you start drawing the right of way and everything. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that point. You guys can figure out the rest of it. Now, the other thing too that I want to talk about is this area here. So this part of the grid needs to go away. I don't need to see all this. All this information really needs to be get pulled in so that because we don't need all this grid part over here. So for that one, what we're going to do is we're going to select the profile. We're going to go to profile view properties. On profile view properties, it shows us, of course, the information of the object style. That's the, how we started with the profile view is the one that we started with. So that's the style that we had started with, which we're not going to use. So we're going to stick with the engineering section view. Okay. And then in there, of course, we go look at stations. So stations starts at 0 and ends at 79. I'm not even sure where 0 is at. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a specified user range. And this way it says -1, station 0 somewhere around here. So I guess maybe I'll go with a -50 or something, apply. Okay, should be less than that. So maybe -10 or something. Okay, that's not too bad. I can probably get a little bit closer, -7. I think will work. And then we got the same issue with this part of the grid. I don't need to see all that. So I'll be doing the same thing, grabbing this profile view properties and then change the ending at maybe 75. That's just a guess. Oh, that's pretty good. 75 looks pretty good. There you go. Okay. Same thing with the height. If you need to add height, in case because you want to have enough of a grid, in some cases it needs to be taller, you might have to go in there to your view properties and adjust the elevations. Instead of it going automatic, you might have to go to a specified height and then maybe go from 85 to 95 or maybe 900. Just depending on how much grid you need to see, you just adjust that. So that's going to be up to you, and just to make sure that everything looks very nice. Okay, let's go ahead and finish up this profile view, section view, which is really using the profile. So we got our right-of-way line, McKinley Boulevard, drawn already. So let's kind of continue over here, and really, we still need to finish up this part here also, just to find out what this is going to look like. So at this point, what are we gonna draw? Okay. So once again, you need to use a combination of different things. You need to use a combination of the grading plan, looking at these notes. We have detail number 20 as the keynote number 23, which I think is a curb and gutter in the right of way. So that's a new one. And you see this little note that says concrete apron, and you notice that the 23 is kind of like a darker line, and over here it's kind of gray. So it's all these things that you have to kind of know what you're drawing. And that's probably the biggest thing that I'll tell you, students, is that you need to know what you're drawing. So I'm gonna go and maybe even look at the pictures and kind of look at the pictures and see where this is at. Let's see. Okay, so we're somewhere in this area right here. Okay, so it's almost like our section view is being drawn somewhere around here. So we can kind of see where we're coming down with the swale, and then kind of here. And then we have that vertical drop. That's why we have that little drop here on the profile. And then we have this one coming up to the section view. To the curb. So this is that little drop that we need to draw, and this is a new wall that's being built. Looks like as part of this construction. So that's a new wall, new sidewalk, and a new curb, but this is existing pavement. So this is what's going to stay. So once again, that's why these details are these section views are so detailed, because there's a lot of information going on here, and then you need to understand what's going on, whether by pictures, asking questions, going to the site and seeing it, whatever you need to do, ladies and gentlemen, to get these sections drawn correctly. Okay. So I'm going to go back over here. And once again, it looks like it's a new curb, which is these green lines right in here. It looks like this is the surface view. Yep. And that's the curb right in here, external reference, which is our XREF. That looks like it's the X site, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So that's going to be the curb line there. And then here we have a rock wall that we're building. And you can kind of see that here, that little vertical drop there in the rock wall. And it gets even worse once, let me kind of zoom in here. You can kind of see that vertical drop from one side of the proposed pavement to the other. And I think it gets even worse over here towards the corner. It gets a lot taller in vertical difference. There's something wrong here with the tin. I need to fix that tin, which is our triangulated irregular network. But once again, you can kind of see that this vertical difference is a lot bigger. If you were to walk off from here and come me here, that's a good 7 or 8 feet of drop. You might hurt yourself if you're not careful. But so that's what we need to draw. So we need to draw in a new rock wall at that point. Right in there, you can kind of see where it's highlighted. That's where we need to draw in a new rock wall, and then the paving coming up to that elevation. Okay. So this will be the other side of the elevation, which is at this point, that's where we're going to put in our new sidewalk and curb. So let's go ahead and draw that next. Okay. So I can probably safely assume that this is going to be the top of the rock wall over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, and it won't be a regular rock wall. It'll be more of a retaining rock wall like this. Of course, remember, this is an existing rock wall, but it's an existing retaining rock wall. Mine's going to be not as big. So I could probably use this one as a reference, copy it. And I'm going to copy, put a window, W for window, and copy this guy right in here. From here down to this way, F8, turn that off. And I'm going to leave that there because I don't need this stuff here. I'm going to redraw the hatch pattern. So I'm going to move that guy out of the way. And then going to go ahead and place the rock wall probably from this endpoint here to probably this endpoint right there. There's a little bit of a gap in here. Let's see. And that's kind of really what's happening here. I don't necessarily agree with this too much. You usually put the rock wall right up against the property line. That's the surface here. At this point, this is such a small little detail that it really, you can probably leave it like that. You'll be okay. This is a proposed rock wall. It's not existing, so it's a new one. So anything that's in this cyan color is going to be the new stuff. So that's what we need to draw as a new rock wall, retaining specifically, and then it's going to come up to this elevation here. So I'm going to move this guy from here up to that endpoint right uh, there. That's kind of the elevation of where that's going to be at. Okay, and then adjust this one to about there. So again, you just kind of adjust it or redraw it, however. You get a little bit more comfortable with all this um, as you go and start understanding more of these section views. Okay, and then fillet rate is 0. So click off right there. I'll extend this one too right there. Okay. And then we're going to draw our new pavement. We already defined the swale in here. I'm not sure why I erased it, but I should have that swale drawn in. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this guy back. That endpoint over to here. Right there. That's our swale. And then we're going to have another line going from the swale line up to that endpoint right there. If you notice, it kind of follows the proposed ground pretty closely, and that's exactly what we want to see. And then offset it 1. That's the thickness of the pavement. And then match properties. That's all proposed new pavement coming up to there. So that's where we have our vertical drop. And then on this side is where we're going to have our sidewalk. Okay. So now we need to finalize here. So what's happening there? We had a concrete apron, and it looks like it used to be here. You can kind of see where you can see the new curb right in here versus the existing curb. So all of this here is new curb, and our section view is kind of somewhere through here. So we're going to draw this new curb coming up to existing pavement. So I'm going to base everything off of that gutter elevation is what I'm going to do. Off of that gutter elevation right there is where I'm going to base my section view from. So I'm going to go back over here. And again, if you look at the X site, you can kind of see the new curb right in here. If you go over here, you can actually see that superimposed one with the other. If you wanted to see it in here, what you can do is you can actually go to your X references under X site, and it's short of erasing it, I can right click and unload the X site, and it'll temporarily turn it off to show me what's existing. And there's that existing concrete apron, which is good, a fancy name for a driveway. These are the surfaces. I can actually turn those off too if I don't want to see them. I can go to surfaces, right click under existing ground surface properties, and there should be usually a style called no display. And I can do that for proposed ground also, surface properties. And then I can change that surface style from a contours background to no display, apply. So it's still there, it just kind of turns them off. So you can kind of see exactly what's going on here. And then it looks like we have an 8749 gutter. And to show these X's, by the way, that also doesn't show up on yours. So I can type in DDP type, because I think by default it's like these little dots, so you actually don't see where those X's are at. They're actually right there. You can kind of barely see it. So DDP type, and then I'm going to change it over to a little X and change it over to an absolute units of 1.5. And that's really just to show those little X's, which is where that 8749 elevation comes from. So 8749 gutter. We have another gutter here of 8564. If you don't know what that is, you can ID the node point. That guy right there, and that's your, did I grab the right one? Node. Yeah. That's your 8564, which is that gutter right there. So just by looking at it, 8564, 87 should be like 87 something. So let's go back over here, see what we got. 85, 86, 87. Okay. I think I can go with that. So I can safely call that one the gutter line right there. So I can call that the gutter. And if you want, I can even call it, and I can I'll put a label on it. Once again, just using all these little tools. It's whatever you need to use to figure out your section view. That's going to be at station 7375. So I'm going to go back over here, using again the same tools under profiles, station elevation, 73.75, and then just draw a random line up. 7375. Okay. Myself a line from this intersection right there. F8 this way. So our surface is off a little bit here, but again, that's just a small thing. But I can safely draw it right there. If you want to be super exact, which I usually try to do, I'll use that intersection for our existing pavement, because that is existing pavement. It'll be kind of like this. It is not an existing curb, so that curb stays. We're gonna draw it as a proposed curb. So I guess we can go ahead and copy this guy. Copy that from this endpoint right here over to F8 to that intersection point right there. There we go. So you can kind of see that's a little 6-inch jump right in there. This is going to be new curb, so I'm going to explode this guy. It's new curb, so we can actually leave it as new curb. We need to change the layers of it. Okay. And then this is existing pavement. Now, if you, I hope I don't confuse you, but I know it's labeled as curb and gutter, but if you look at the pictures, there is no gutter. It's all concrete. The gutter would be another portion of curb right in here. So this is really just a standard curb. So it is different. It's actually mislabeled on the grading plan, because I think it does say um, curb and gutter in there somewhere for number 23. But if you really want to be even more exact, that should be just drawn as a standard curve. So we're going to delete this guy from there to there, erase this one to be more exact once again, and then move this existing pavement from this point to perpendicular to there. That's our standard curb existing. And then this is at a 2% sidewalk. I don't know if I showed you guys this trick, but you can draw it at a 2%. It's going to go at -100, comma 2, coming up this way. That way it draws it at 2%, and you can kind of see there's actually a little bit of fill right in here. And then this is where we're going to put in our new sidewalk of 0.33 thickness. I don't remember the sidewalk width. I can measure it. I need to reload my XREF. And then get the width of the sidewalk. So now that I turn my XREF back on, I can go in here and take a distance or label it with the little tool. Let's see, distance from this intersection of the sidewalk to this intersection of the sidewalk, and that's a 5.0035. That's a little weird, but again, we didn't do that side plan, so I'm going to call it a 5-foot sidewalk, offset 5 this way, and trim. Grab that little line there and erase. You don't need this little section view. So there's actually like a little bit of fill right in here, and it kind of looks like it. You can kind of see how they filled in this little area with dirt. So that makes sense. So we're gonna have to adjust our section view a little bit. Our retaining rock wall, because it won't be down to here, but you know, I don't know how to tell you this, but you try to be as exact as possible, but sometimes you're gonna be building it a little bit differently. But nonetheless, let me go ahead and just move this guy up here, right in there, because that's usually what retains from this level down to this level is what usually gets retained. Okay. And there we go. So we have a retaining rock wall, new sidewalk, new landscaping, new curb, and existing pavement. Okay. And that's how we need to label it. We need to label it. We need to label the swale. And don't forget that you can actually, just copy these little notes. To right in here. And then that's existing pavement or new pavement, I'm sorry. Copy these notes right in here from that endpoint over to this endpoint right here. Don't forget to actually label the elevation on them. Station offset, station elevation, sorry. You pick that point right there. And that elevation happens to be 8929. So you label the text, or edit the text, sorry. 8929. You can recreate it or you can actually just move it. You can move this little label and put it there. And that'll give us 8957. So many ways. And please remember, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not the only way of drawing a section view. It's just one of many different ways. But this one incorporates the use of the tools, of all the Civil 3D tools for your use. And you can keep labeling with the rest of the information: new concrete sidewalk, existing curb to remain undisturbed. That's, of course, if it was existing curb. Ours is going to be new curb. So we're going to call it new concrete curb and gutter, even though, like I was mentioning, it's not really curb and gutter. So we can just call it new concrete curb from here to here. So it is new concrete curb. We didn't see any gutter there that was being built. You need to put in the elevation. Okay, I'll leave that X'd out for now. So you can put in the elevation. We need to extend the grid a little bit. Going back to our profile view properties, we had an end station of 75, and we can go to 80 or something. And a little bit more, maybe about 83. There we go. A new sidewalk, and label it accordingly. And for the sake of helping you guys, let me go ahead and just label the rest of this, or show you how to label it here. So this is not just a rock wall, it's a new retaining rock wall. Okay. The retaining rock wall, we have swale asphalt pavement. I'll show you how to hatch the rest of it. That guy. So new pavement. Concrete sidewalk. Here. New curb and gutter, new pavement, new retaining rock wall, new sidewalk. So we can go ahead and add that label there too. Do we label? We could label it landscaping. And then new concrete curb. Once again, just kind of looking at the previous notes. And as long as you label it correctly, we can even call this one existing pavement. All caps. Spell it correctly, of course. Really, we can even call it to remain. So many different ways. Okay. The concrete sidewalk right in here. Okay, I think that does it for labeling. I was going to hatch the rock wall here, the retaining rock wall, but we noticed on this example, any new rock wall was not hatched. It was only the existing one. So we don't have an existing rock wall in this case in particular. So I'm going to just erase that hatch. And again, these are small little details. I'm just going to move this over just to make it look a little cleaner for myself. Okay. And then we need the earth hatch pattern, kind of like how we have it here all the way along the bottom. We also need to label the existing grade, which is the subgrade. And then we have the approximate existing grade. Sorry if this video is getting a little bit lengthy, but it is all the information you'll need to create all your section views. That is the existing grade right in here. And then as far as subgrade, that's usually what's underneath the pavement is what we call subgrade and base. So that's usually just the area below that. We usually put like a little note, and it's not necessarily to the existing ground, it's just to the little area underneath the pavement. That's called subgrade, and it does need to be compacted to these specifications. And then we can go ahead and create our hatch pattern. And that's really the only thing that was going to be left here. So you're welcome to keep watching. Other than that, we're done with this section view. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I would hatch this. I don't know if it's easier or faster, or you find a bit better, easier, better way, however you want to do it. Doesn't really matter as long as we put in a little earth hatch pattern. That's what I'm asking for. Trace it along the bottom. And like I mentioned, if that's the last thing I'm gonna do. So if you're comfortable with what you need to do, go ahead and continue. Stop this video, continue. If not, you're welcome to watch my hatching skills. I'm going to trace the bottom of it here. The reason I'm going to do that is because I can select that object for my hatch pattern instead of just picking points, just to show you a different way of creating hatch patterns. Okay. That's the shape I'm going to use. Now, as far as a hatch pattern, we're kind of used to doing this type of thing. But the thing is that, okay, well, it found that area real nicely, but sometimes it uses the grid lines as a boundary, so it won't let you hatch. You'll have to pick like a little area here and one here and one here and one here, but this one worked out real nicely. Another way of hatching, just to let you know, is when you hatch, you have the option of selecting objects too. So you can select objects and you can select the object that I just created, which is our closed boundary, or pick points, either one. And then we're going to be using, as a matter of fact, I can leave it like that for now because I can just then match properties. It'll match the layers, it'll match the hatch pattern, the scale. And once again, you don't really have to recreate the wheel when, um, as the saying says, you don't have to recreate the wheel when it's all there. Simply copy and paste, okay? And that's what our section A would look like. So we'll have to draw up section B, C, and D, and I will tell you each one is going to be different. So you can kind of see all the analysis you need to do by looking at your surfaces, looking at different areas of it, just labeling. So just all these legal components are what's required. Thank you very much.